Now I'd like to invite the children to come forward for the children's sermon. Oh, wow, you all got the same outfit on. You going to sing for us? What are you going to sing? Far away or close by? It's an old joke. Never mind. You know, this is a special day in the church. This is why I'm wearing this red today. Everybody's wearing red today? There's a lot of red out there, that's true. Today is called Pentecost Sunday. And that means it's the birthday of the church. In the Bible, there was a whole bunch of disciples gathered, and a very strange thing happened. They were in this huge place, and there were all kinds of people from all over the countries, and every country spoke different languages. So there were some people who were speaking Spanish, maybe, I don't know. French, Japanese, what else could they be speaking? Chinese? American. Yeah, that is true. American isn't exactly English, isn't it? But, okay, English, what other languages? German? What other language? Portuguese, I was waiting for that. Say something in Portuguese first, Liam.
Oi.
Oi? What does that mean, like? Hi. Okay. In Spanish, it's hola. What's another word in Portuguese? What's a word for food?
I don't know.
Do you remember? You didn't eat while you were in Brazil, huh? Yeah, you did. I'll bet you did. Okay. Anyway, all these languages. Now, funny thing happened. The disciples, who were all from the same, roughly the same part of the country that Jesus was from, the disciples got up to speak to the whole crowd. And they kind of split up, and they started speaking, and one of the disciples started speaking Portuguese. But he didn't know Portuguese. But he told him about Jesus, and he spoke the language of the people in that corner of the square that knew how to speak Portuguese. And they all spoke, all these disciples spoke a different language so that the people who were standing in front of them and near them could understand what they were saying. And they told him about Jesus and about the things he had done and about how Jesus was God's love in the world and how we ought to live our lives in love and in caring for others. All these different languages. And we're told that that happened because the Holy Spirit came to them and allowed them to speak those languages. That seems like a very strange experience, doesn't it? You think you'd ever be able to get up and give a speech in Italian or French or Hebrew? Unless you took it at college, right? If you took the language at high school and college, then you could speak it, but otherwise, no. You know, there are times when you speak a different language, though, or you have to learn to speak a different language, and I'll give you an example. When I was in elementary school, there was a kid named Sherwin Ruger, his name was. Kind of a rough name, huh? He was a mean little kid. I've got a couple of stories about him, but this one I want to tell you. He was a mean little kid, and everybody in the school, in the first grade, in the second grade, in the third grade, knew Sherwin Ruger was a mean little kid, and he caused a lot of problems for teachers. Sherwin Ruger had his own chair in the principal's office. Know what I'm saying? Because he got sent to the office so much, this chair was just for Sherwin. Some days he'd sit the whole day in the office because he'd been so bad. Now he gets to the fourth grade, and we had a teacher, his name was Mrs. Soa. Mrs. Soa was she was one of my favorite teachers. And she was very nice, she was very kind, she was a very good teacher. So now Mrs. Soa finds that on her class list is Sherwin Ruger. And I was on her class list. So the first day of school, I showed up to class. All my friends are there. Al Anderson and Judy Martin, the first girl I ever kissed in school. And, ew, that stinks. Huh? Anyway, this was fourth grade. I didn't kiss her in fourth grade, believe me. Anyway, sitting right next to me, Sherwin Ruger. And Sherwin Ruger was going to be mean, because he always was mean. So finally, after the first or second week of school, not very far into the school year, and Sherwin had already been bad a couple of times. Oh, he would do things like he would throw erasers at people before the teacher came in. He'd trip people walking down the aisle. Our desks were all in a row, and they were fixed to the floor, so you couldn't move them around. So you had to walk between the desks all the time. So Mrs. Soa was going to send Sherwin to the principal's office, and she decided, no, she's not going to do that. So she got another teacher to come in, or a substitute, I don't know what it was, and she took Sherwin, and she took him to the little restaurant right on the corner across the street. And she sat down and talked to Sherwin. And do you know why Sherwin was so mean? Because he was hungry. His family had no breakfast. His family never sent lunch to school. So when he went home, sometimes nobody was home. And he told Mrs. Soa that sometimes when he would go home for lunch, because we all lived close to the school, there was no cafeteria and nobody went to school on a bus. So when you left the school at lunchtime, you went home and you had lunch. And when I went home, my mom was there and she had a sandwich for me or whatever she'd made for lunch. And then I'd walk back to school because it was so close. And all the kids did that. Well, Sherwin would walk home and he'd say to Mrs. Soa, I usually just sit on the back porch because nobody's home and I don't have a key. I'm not supposed to go in the house unless my mom and dad are there. So then he wouldn't have any lunch. Why do you think he was mean? He was hungry. It's hard to be a student when you're hungry. And can you imagine having nothing to eat for breakfast? And we would have a snack at school in the middle of the morning, and one of the reasons why Sherwin was mad was because he'd grab your snack. And he'd say, give me your snack, or I'm going to punch you right in the nose. And that was to the girls. To the boys, he was really mean. That was a joke. Anyway, they didn't even get it. So sometimes he would grab other kids' snacks because he was hungry. And so 2 cookies wasn't enough for him, which is what we usually had for snacks. So when Mrs. Soa sat him down and talked to him, she was like, she had to learn a different language. She couldn't just say to him, Sherwin, be a good boy. Sherwin, pay attention to your lessons, do your homework, that kind of stuff. She couldn't just talk like that. She had to talk a different language to him. She had to find out what is happening with this boy. And he can't be a bad boy. A lot of people thought, he's just a rotten kid. Forget about it. He's just a rotten kid. He'll end up in jail someday or something like that. So just don't even talk to him. But Mrs. Soa knew better. And she talked to him and she found out. And then, every morning, she told him, you get to school 15 minutes early. And every morning, Sherwin Ruger had a bowl of cereal and some toast that Mrs. Soa had brought from home. And every lunchtime, when he left the room, he would be the last one out of the room, and Mrs. Soa would hand him a sandwich and something to drink. And then he would go home and sit on the porch and eat his lunch, and then he'd come back to school. And all of a sudden, Sherwin got to be a pretty nice kid because he wasn't hungry anymore. See, sometimes you have to speak a different language with people to find out what's going on with them. Why are they so upset? Or why are they so sad? Or why are they so nasty and mean? And usually there's a good reason, and it's a reason that sometimes we can help with. Mrs. Soa made a huge difference in that boy's life, and he was only in 4th grade. Nobody's rotten in 4th grade. It takes a lot longer to get to be really a rotten person. Thanks for listening. You going to sing now? Okay.